They don't teach this shit in school, but they should. I'm Dustin Owen, and for the past 20 years, the mortgage industry has been my classroom. I've helped over 2,000 families become homeowners, built a $1 billion mortgage operation from scratch, and earned my way into the top 1% of income earners worldwide. Along the way, I became a real estate investor, a business owner, and have invested in over 20 tech startups, even hitting a 20x return on one of my investments. This isn't theory, it's experience. Welcome to the D.O. Show, where I teach the lessons life taught me the hard way. Most people think McDonald's is a fast food company. Guess what? It's not. McDonald's is actually one of the largest real estate companies in the world, and they just happen to sell hamburgers. Real estate has become one of the most powerful ways for everyday people to build long-term wealth. But let me be blunt, real estate investing is not a get-rich-quick scheme. You make your money when you buy the property, not when you sell it. I've owned an investment company since 2020. I've wholesaled properties. I've flipped properties. I've assigned contracts. Heck, I even built a spec home, AKA new construction for sale. I own rentals. And for the past 20 years, as a mortgage industry professional, I have helped hundreds of people purchase their first investment property. Today, I'm going to teach you how real estate investing really works. I'm Dustin Owen, and this is the D.O. Show. All right, let's jump in. Real estate investing is simple, but y'all, it is not easy. And the data shows just how big real estate investing has become over the past couple years. Let's jump into investor landscape. Check this out. In 2025, investors bought 30% of all single-family homes. Just a year prior, in 2024, it was only 25%. Between the years 2018 and 2021, investor purchases were less than 20% of all single-family home sales. Believe it or not, most investors, they're not hedge funds, small investors. Those are people who own 1 to 9 properties. They make up 14% of all single-family home purchases. Then medium investors, they make up 10%. A medium investor is somebody who owns 10 to 99 properties. Large investors, those are the investors that own 100 to 1,000 homes, make up 3% of all single-family home purchases. And mega investors, the ones that we're all worried about, those with over 1,000 homes, they only make up 2% of the home purchases. Where are some of the top markets right now for real estate investors? Dallas, Houston, Atlanta, Phoenix, and Los Angeles. They make up the top 5. Other markets where investors are buying: Tampa, Florida, Kansas City, Missouri, St. Louis, Missouri, Las Vegas, Denver, Colorado, Detroit, Michigan, Charlotte, and Indianapolis. Now, before you get started either investing in real estate or working with investors, you gotta speak the language. It is the mark of a true professional. The medical profession, they have their own jargon. Cops have their own jargon. Heck, even loan officers, we have our own jargon. So before you invest or work with investors, you must speak the language. And if you're a realtor or a loan officer, this right here, this is your competitive advantage. Here are some of the key terms everyone must know: cash flow, flip, buy and hold, added value, wholesale, ARV, BRRR, and cap rate. So cash flow is how much money is left over each month or each year after all expenses have been paid. A flip is when you buy a home, you fix it up, and you sell it pretty quickly. Typical flips take anywhere between 3 to 9 months from when you bought it to when you sell it. Buying and holding is the practice of purchasing a property, typically updating it, renting that home, and holding on to it for years. Added value means the improvements that you made that are going to drive value into the property. Wholesaling is when you purchase a home, typically a distressed sale, a home that needs some improvements, but instead of you doing the improvements, you go ahead and sell that home quickly to another real estate investor. Similar to wholesaling is contract assignment, but this is when you put a home under contract. You never actually close on purchasing the home, but you assign the rights to another investor. ARV stands for after repair value. This means how much is the home going to be worth after you purchase it and fix it up. BRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. A cap rate is a mathematical formula. It stands for annual rent minus expenses divided by purchase price. Now that you understand the language, let's talk about how people actually make money in real estate. You know the reason why you tuned in today. The 4 investing strategies are this: fix and flip, wholesale, contract assignments, and buy and hold. Sure, for the more advanced investor, there are things called novations, but that's not for today's episode. Flipping is sexy, but it is risky. Myself and friends of mine have made a ton of money flipping homes, but we've also lost a ton of money flipping homes. Wholesaling is fast and lower risk. However, dealing with other investors can sometimes be more frustrating than dealing with contractors. Contract assignments are similar and profitable. Buy and hold is where real wealth is built. And if you take anything away from this episode, it's understanding that buy and hold is where real wealth is built. Know this about fixing and flipping. Sure, it's sexy. Some would even say sexy as hell. Quick money. But it is risky. Fixing and flipping is where I've lost the most money in real estate. Now, don't get me wrong. I've made some really good profits on some fix and flips, but it is a risky transaction. Wholesaling is less risk than flipping. It tends to be faster money, but also lower money. And don't kid yourself, wholesaling is still frustrating. Remember, wholesaling is when you're finding a property, you're buying that property. Typically the property was a distressed sale. Typically the property needs rehab, but instead of you doing the rehab work and then reselling the home to a more traditional home buyer, you're just going to sell the home as is, typically to another investor. This means it's a non-emotional sale, which increases your risk that the actual buyer, which is another investor, will back out. Contract assignments are pretty similar to wholesaling. Remember, the difference though is when you're assigning a contract, you never actually purchase the property. You wrote a contract. You have the right to purchase it, but that contract also gave you the right to assign the contract to another investor or another buyer. When you do this, your profit is typically less than wholesaling. So if you think about simple business principles, risk versus reward, a contract assignment, low risk, but low reward. Wholesaling, more risky than an assignment, but not as risky as a flip. However, the reward on a wholesale deal typically is less than a fix and flip. Fix and flip, sexy as hell, brings you the most potential for profit, but also the greatest risk for loss. And then there's the buy and hold. Buy and hold is what most of us should be doing. Buy and hold is how you build wealth. Buy and hold can be boring AF. And by AF, I mean always and forever. Buying and holding is simple. You buy the property, you hold it for a long period of time while renting it out. Fast forward 7, 10, 15 years, and now you've purchased 6, 8, or even 10 properties. Those properties have gone up in value while someone else has paid down your loan. All of a sudden, there's a massive amount of wealth accumulated over a long period of time. So nothing sexy about buying and holding. However, that's where the real wealth is generated. That real wealth is wealth built over time. Now we're going to get into the BRRR methodology. If you want to scale, if you want multiple rentals, BRRR is your blueprint. Let me explain this to you. BRRR. First, the B. You got to buy the home. The first R means rehab. You have to rehab the home. The third R, rent. Rent the home out once it's been fully rehabbed. Once it's rented, you can go to the third R, which is refinance that home. The reason why you're going to want to refinance it is more than likely the loan terms that you had for fixing and flipping were far inferior to loan terms that you can obtain once you have the home fully rehabbed and rented out. And then that fourth R, repeat. By repeating, we mean go do it again. When you did that initial refinance, more than likely, there's a good chance you were able to not just pay off your fix and flip loan or pay back that private investor who helped you purchase the home, but because you added value by rehabbing the home, there's a good chance you were able to actually pull money out. The money that you pull out during that refinance, that's the money that you're going to put back into your next one or two rental properties. Let me tell you a story about my most recent BRRR transaction. Here are the actual numbers from one of my most recent deals. I bought the home for $120,000. I put $30,000 into the home in terms of added value, aka rehab. All in, I'm about $150,000 into this home. Now the ARV, the after repair value, it came back at $300,000. Now I rented the home for $2,500 a month. Now that I have the home rented for $2,500, it's fully rehabbed, it's worth $300,000. I went and refinanced out of my fix and flip loan and into a more long-term 30-year fixed loan. And when I refinanced it, I took out $225,000 loan. My mortgage on that is $1,900 a month. That means I'm getting cash flow of roughly $500 a month. And because I refinanced it at $225,000, I only had to pay off $150,000 plus cover some closing costs. I walked away with $65,000 in my pocket. That $65,000 is going to be money that we put into our next two properties. That's exactly how the BRRR methodology works. But listen closely. BRRR only works if you buy correctly. Period. And I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. You make money in real estate when you buy the property, not when you sell it. That's a big mistake people make. If you lock in at a good price, then you're also locking in your profits. Now I'm going to walk you through how to analyze a deal to make sure you don't make the biggest mistake, which is overpaying. Your max offer should be, and again, this is a great rule of thumb that most of us follow. Your max offer is 65% of ARV minus repairs. So that example I just gave you of my most recent BRRR, let's walk through how that formula worked for me. We purchased the home, if you remember, for $120,000, but the after repair value was $300,000. So when I worked my math backwards, I had a good idea that the home would be worth $300,000 after I fully rehabbed it. I knew that because A, I'm seasoned and experienced, but B, because I work with a professional realtor who helped me run comparables and helped me come up with a fair market value for once the home was fully rehabbed. So $300,000 is my ARV, my after repair value. I know that the formula says take 65% of ARV, which 65% of $300,000 is $195,000 minus repairs. Well, repairs were estimated to be $30,000. I knew that because A, I have experience, but B, because I brought my trusted contractor along to walk the property before I closed on it, and he gave me a good number of what it would take to rehab the home. We crushed it on this one because we were able to buy it actually for $120,000. But if I bought it for $165,000, it still would have been a quote unquote good buy. However, when I BRRR'd the property, what would have been impacted is I wouldn't have walked away with $65,000. I would have walked away with much less had I purchased the home for more money. So as you can see, I made my money when I bought the home, not when I sold it. Now, obviously, I just shared with you one of my biggest wins. But guess what? My biggest losses, you know where they came from? They came from us not following the formula. The market was hot. We were greedy. We were excited. We wanted that property. So we bought at 80% ARV. And all of that worked out well until the market softened, until my costs came in higher than anticipated. And all of a sudden, because I didn't lock in at the right price, I lost money. When you get too aggressive, that's when you'll watch your money evaporate. When you buy right, that's when you make money. So if buying a home incorrectly was the biggest pain, the second biggest pain, contractors. Even when you buy a home right, the next big danger are contractors. So let me share some real world pain with you. I had this contractor, this was 2 years ago, go to jail mid-project. The problem is, no one told us for 3 weeks. It then took us 2 weeks to track him down. By that time, we were 5 weeks behind on our project. That was 5 weeks of us paying interest on a loan while no work was being done. I've had a contractor walk off the job, kept our $10,000 deposit, and then basically taunted us to come sue him if we really wanted the 10 grand. So not only was I out $10,000, but I then had to go find another contractor to pick up where he left off, which delayed me by 6 weeks. And holy cow, in the years of 2021 and 2022, we had 5 homes that we had purchased in the same month. All 5 homes were set to be fixed and flipped, so we were rehabbing all 5. Except we were still having massive supply chain issues. So not only could I not find the right contractors, but for us to get the right materials, it was taking 2 to 3 times longer and costing us 50 to 75% more. Super long story short, we took a bath on all 5. Now, taking a bath for us, we thought we were going to bring in about $150,000 of revenue. We ended up bringing in $5,000 of revenue. That was all of that risk, all of that time, all of those resources delayed by months for what? $5,000 in revenue? To give you an idea, at the time, our company was burning through $30,000 a month in overhead. Only bringing in $5,000 in revenue, that meant we lost money because we didn't bring in enough to cover our nut. When you're purchasing investment properties, expect the unexpected. You're going to purchase homes that already have tenants in them, but the tenants are going to refuse to leave. You're going to purchase homes where there are multiple sellers because maybe the home was inherited. So now you have siblings or you have cousins that all own this home. And those sellers don't always talk to each other. They don't always like each other. And it's difficult to get them to always agree. You're going to buy homes that have hidden repairs. You and your contractor walked the home, but you didn't see inside of a wall that now all of a sudden you have a $10,000 plumbing issue that you didn't account for. So now that I've covered some of the pitfalls and some of the things to look out for, and I've taught you how to properly use the formula of 65% ARV minus repairs to come up with your strongest and most profitable offer, let's talk about how to finance these homes. We're going to dive deep into financing because this is where investors, realtors, and loan originators can create major opportunities. These are your financing options typically. Let's start with what everyone knows, the conventional loan. Conventional loan, that's a 30-year fixed, a 15-year fixed, typically a loan being sold to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac and underwritten to their guidelines. You're going to need 20 to 25% down, and this is a full underwrite. The property is going to have to be move-in ready. You're going to close in your personal name. However, you can transfer into an LLC afterwards. You're going to have some of the lowest interest rates, but you're going to be required to meet the reserve requirements, the credit requirements, the income verification requirements, and the asset verification requirements. The most popular loan right now for real estate investors is a DSCR loan. DSCR stands for Debt Service Coverage Ratio. On a DSCR loan, no personal income is required. The lender truly only cares about, does the rent cover the entire monthly expenses of the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and any association dues required. DSCR loans, I like to call as a lender, they are no income verification investor loans. They are very popular. Now, fix and flip loans are also very popular. You're probably not going to use a DSCR loan on a home that requires you to do a lot of rehab work. That's where fix and flip loans come in. But these are shorter terms, typically 9 to 12 months. They're higher interest rates. The closings can be pretty quick, but the benefit of a fix and flip loan is that they will allow you to purchase the home as well as finance in the rehab. What many people do get wrong about fix and flip loans is they think they can do a fix and flip loan with no money out of their pocket. I have not found that to be the case. You're going to need somewhere between $5,000 to $25,000 depending on the scope of the work, the lender you're using, what you qualify for, because lenders want to see that you have skin in the game, and you always have to cover things like closing cost. Closing costs are fees to the lender, fees to the title company, fees to your government, whether it's state and or county, homeowners insurance, surveys, appraisals, and inspections. And there's always private money loans. Private money, also called hard money, is when you work directly with another individual. Sometimes these are other investors who have a side business where they're lending you their own money. I like working with private lenders because private lenders tend to be a little bit more flexible. For example, I have a private lender that has $1 million at any time that he's willing to leverage to allow investors like me to purchase real estate. And when I use this private lender, his closing costs are less, his interest rate's slightly more, but he's super flexible. And by super flexible, when I'm doing a fix and flip, he will actually let me defer the interest I owe until the payoff. That means I don't have any monthly payments. On a conventional loan, a DSCR loan, and a fix and flip loan, I'm going to have to make monthly payments of at least interest while I'm rehabbing the home before I sell it. But when I work with my private money lender, also called a hard money lender, he's more flexible. However, hard money lending and private money lending is all relational. So if they don't know you and you don't have a good reputation, it may be difficult in the beginning to start working with a hard money or a private money lender. Now, if you're looking to purchase your first investment property or multiple investment properties with quote unquote no money down, let me teach you this one hack. I've used it for years and it still works today. If you own a primary home and that primary home has substantial equity, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, you can go and apply for a home equity line of credit, aka a HELOC, and you can use the equity in your primary home by leveraging a HELOC for your down payment and closing cost on either your short-term rental property that you're looking to buy or your next fix and flip. The way this works is that you're essentially transferring the equity from your primary home into your rental or your investment property. It's your way to technically purchase an investment property with no money out of your pocket because you're leveraging a HELOC on your primary to fund the funds required for down payment and closing costs on your upcoming investment property purchase. And please always remember, anytime you're dealing with financing, you have to qualify. There is an underwriting process that every investor, whether it's hard money, private money, DSCR, conventional, or fix and flip, they're going to want to make sure that you have a history of paying your bills on time and that you have the assets necessary to deal with anything that is going to be unforeseen. So if you find difficulty qualifying for financing, that's where you have to turn to other methodologies in the beginning until you gain that experience. Now, if you don't have money or you're afraid that you won't qualify, don't freak out. Because if you're a brand new investor and you don't have the capital, maybe you don't have the credit, you don't have the net worth to qualify for some of the financing I just mentioned, you can always look at partnering with a seasoned investor. We call these JVs or joint ventures. Here's how it works. You're going to find and bring a great deal to a seasoned investor, and together you're in a JV. You brought the deal, they bring the money, they bring the experience, they bring the credibility. Now, because of this, they may take a bigger cut, but that's okay. You're playing the long game. What you're going to get out of this transaction is learning. You're going to be able to utilize their capital, their know-how, reduce your risk, gain experience, and still make some money because you did the hard part, which was what? You found the deal and you brought it to the table. So I know we haven't covered all the property types. So let's take a minute right now and quickly break down the most common types of residential investments. So a residential property is a condo, a townhome, a single family home, and even a duplex, triplex, or quadruplex. Single family homes by far are the easiest to rent. They are the easiest to sell. They typically are lighter on the cash flow, but they are great for beginners. Duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, right? That's 2 units, 3 units, or 4 units. They can bring higher cash flow, but they're also more expensive properties. Duplexes, triplexes, and quadruplexes will spread out the vacancy risk, which a lot of investors enjoy. And they're all still residential financing, which means they're perfect for the BRRR transaction. Now, I'm not a tax expert, and I'm sure as heck not a CPA, but any real estate investor should know about the 1031 exchange. A 1031 exchange allows you to sell a property, defer the capital gains tax, and reinvest that money back into another property. There are strict timelines and rules, so you'll want to consult with a CPA, a 1031 exchange company, as well as your favorite local lender. If you've ever read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that author talks a lot about 1031 exchanges in his journey of becoming wealthy. All right, so now you're probably thinking, D.O., this is amazing information. However, you haven't quite told us yet how to find the deals. Cool, let's dive in. Let's talk about how to find the deals. The first place that I start is actually with real estate agents. Believe it or not, real estate agents are great resources. Not because they have access to the MLS, although there's nothing wrong with having realtors looking for great deals on MLS for you. I love it when a realtor goes on a listing appointment where a potential seller reached out and had a home to sell. After previewing the property, the realtor realized this home needs a ton of repair that the seller can't afford. And instead of listing the home, the realtor refers the seller to call me and my team. We go in, we assess the property, and we make the seller a direct offer. My next place to find deals is actually within my own circle of influence. The people that are already in our lives, they are inheriting properties that they don't want. They have elderly parents who are needing to move into assisted living, or they have a neighbor or a friend with a home that they would love to get re-beautified and put back on the market because that home in their neighborhood is just not taken care of. My personal network brings me at least 2 deals a year. Now, I can always go to REI meetings. REI is Real Estate Investors. Real Estate Investors International is a local trade organization that most cities have either in their market or something similar, where it's other investors coming together once a month to idea share, mastermind, but also it's a great place to find deals when one investor may have a home that they have locked up with a seller, but instead of actually buying it, they would rather just assign you the contract. And as long as after you purchase the home, you pay their assignment fee, and that assignment fee matches your formula for success, then there's nothing wrong with buying homes from other investors. Similar to going to REI meetups, there are private Facebook groups in just about every market where realtors and investors alike all come together to mastermind, share ideas, and a lot of times look for people to share in joint venture opportunities. One of the favorite websites of all investors is BiggerPockets. Not only is it a great resource for knowledge, but it's also a great place for other investors to advertise properties that they have for sale. You can sign up with local wholesalers to get their latest, greatest list of inventory. You typically would meet a wholesaler at one of those REI meetups, you'd meet a wholesaler through a real estate agent, or you'd meet a wholesaler on a Facebook group. And then finally, there's the boots on the ground guerrilla marketing methods. They're not sexy, but I promise you they work. The first one is drive for dollars. Drive slowly through a neighborhood. You're looking for distressed homes. What's a distressed home? Something that has tall grass because the landscaping hasn't been manicured. Boarded up windows, tarps on roofs. Anything that looks like it could be vacant and someone hasn't lived there. What you can then do is write down that address, get back to your office, research the owner through public records, and then send mail, postcards, or even phone calls to the owner of record, asking them if they're interested in selling their home. And although it's uncomfortable, I promise you it's effective. Door knocking still works. When you're driving those same neighborhoods and you see those same types of property, be willing to get out of the car. Knock on the door. Introduce yourself as a local real estate investor looking to purchase property in that neighborhood. Let them know you offer fast closings that are easy because you don't require them to fix up the property. You don't require them to do open houses. You won't even require someone to come in and take pictures. They'll be selling the home directly to you, and you can eliminate having to pay realtor commissions. And don't be afraid of those ugly yellow signs. We've all seen them. They're typically at the intersection in whatever town or city we live in. It's a buy it at Home Depot or Office Depot yellow sign that you stick down in the grass, typically written in black Sharpie, "We buy houses," with your cell phone number. Now, these aren't loved by city officials, but I promise you, they do work. You can always look towards courthouse auctions, but I have to warn you, if you're inexperienced, stay away. Those rooms are filled with sharks. Properties often have liens on them, title issues, and here's the deal. When you're buying a home at the courthouse, more times than not, you had zero access to that property prior to purchasing the home. Now, in this next section, I'm going to speak specifically to my realtor friends and my mortgage loan originators. This is what y'all need to know when you're working with investors. Realtors, learn the 65% ARV minus repairs formula and know it so well that you can teach it. Be willing to run comps for your investor friends, whether they're comps on rentals or they're comps on what the after repair value would be. Understand what typical rehab costs are. Build relationships with wholesalers. Understand the difference between a DSCR loan and a fix and flip loan. And finally, stop being scared of ugly houses. You actually want ugly houses to be presented to you so you can feed your investor clients. And for the LOs and the mortgage brokers, you got to understand the DSCR loan. You have to offer fix and flips and truly understand and teach how to leverage the HELOC strategy of leveraging equity from a primary home into multiple investment properties. This is how you teach investors how to scale. And for the investors out there, mindset matters. So before you dive head first, please have proper expectations. What are those expectations? Well, expect problems. If there weren't problems, everyone would do this. Expect delays. Build it into your formula. Expect surprises. Expect unexpected repairs. Expect tenants who won't leave. Like, I've said this once, I've said it 1,000 times. If real estate were easy, everyone would do it. Your job is to stay patient. Your job is to stay disciplined. You want to buy right. You want to follow the math, and do not get emotional. You make your money when you buy. You build your wealth when you hold. You grow your money when you repeat. So in closing, if you're serious about investing or serious about working with investors, watch this again. Take notes, apply what you learn, and remember, what you learn today are the basics. There's way more for you to learn in the future, but most of that is advanced, and there are things that you will learn as you grow. And if this helped you, hit a like, drop a comment, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Because at the D.O. Show, we are out to shape the future of mortgage lending, but also we are out to teach the stuff they don't teach in school.